The story begins in the last line of defense of the Endeavor stronghold, which lies in the Grandis kingdom, where an ongoing war is raging on between the orcs and the humans. Despite the soldiers' relentless efforts, they are being slaughtered one by one. The massive enemy monsters have already scaled the walls. This has forced the soldiers to fight with everything they have, shouting to slay each and every single one. But the orcs are huge creatures with monstrous strength, which are very hard for humans to attack and inflict any significant damage. Even the most powerful fireballs launched by powerful mages are effortlessly deflected by the orc mage's impenetrable mana shield. To make matters worse, a sudden crimson light bathes the orcs, bestowing them with an overwhelming surge of power. This makes their eyes burn with fury as they revel in their newfound power. The orcs have started to go berserk. Witnessing their immense power, the deputy commander of Endeavor Stronghold, Filian Endeavor, is struck with our realizing it is only a matter of time before the South Gate falls. While their sheer numbers sure are troublesome, the real threat will start when the Orc Lord joins the battle. The Orc Lord is a force to be reckoned with, as he is different and possesses the rare ability of an Aura Master, which means he can utilize special aura skills, making him a formidable force on the battlefield. In an instant, the orcs have breached the castle walls. Despair washed over the warriors as doubt clouded their minds, making them question whether this could truly be the end. Regardless of their fears and doubts, they were not yet ready to give up and were hellbent to protect the castle even if it cost them their life. They marched towards the furious orcs to try and stop them with all their might. But the orcs were not someone that could be defeated easily. A single stomp with their gigantic foot can easily crush a human skull in an instant. Amidst the chaotic battle and the merciless slaughter, a sudden burst of light enveloped the fallen soldiers. Much to the astonishment of everyone who witnessed it, even the fallen orcs were brought back to life. An aura emanating from a mysterious figure caused the corpses to rise from their lifeless state. Bewildered by the sudden turn of events, the resurrected warriors launched a relentless assault on the orcs. Even though the orcs tried to fight back, the sheer number of the resurrected warriors started to overwhelm them. The resurrected warriors marched towards the Orc Lord, but they were no match for him and his aura skills. One swing from the Orc Lord was enough to wipe out a huge number of resurrected warriors. It became apparent to the soldiers that a necromancer was responsible for this incredible resurrection, leaving them baffled as to why a necromancer would be present in such a dire situation. In that instant, our MC, the mysterious necromancer, was getting ready to show this Orc Lord what he was truly capable of. Our MC was also aware that defeating this Orc Lord with mere resurrected warriors would not be enough, so decided to reveal himself. He used his summoning portals to summon his most fearsome warriors, each with their special powers. A giant, Tiger King, Dark Fairy, and his most trusted companion, who was a swordsman. While the Orc Lord was demonstrating destructive aura skills, sending many corpses to fly, our MC's most trusted companion was able to attack from a blind spot behind the Orc Lord. However, the Orc Lord, being an Aura Master, was able to sense and dodge the attack in the nick of time. Just as the Orc Lord was about to swing at the MC's swordsman, he was caught off guard by another personal summon from our MC. The Tiger King sped up at an incredibly fast pace and landed an attack, nullifying the Orc Lord's offensive maneuvers. Then the skeleton swordsman attempted another strike, followed with a series of combined attacks with the Tiger King, but the Orc Lord's aura skills combined with his quick reflex allowed him to evade their combined assault easily. However, the two companions were well aware that all it would take was one opening to turn the tide. Sensing that moment, the Tiger King attacked. Tiger King seized the opportunity, delivering a powerful blow that sent the Orc Lord along with his minions several feet away, incapacitated and vulnerable. Meanwhile, everyone in the battlefield were left in state of amazement as they witnessed the vastness of the world unfold before their eyes. It was truly baffling to witness a necromancer with such exceptional swordsmanship taking part in the battlefield. The personal summons of our MC proved to be more powerful. The giant summon with his enormous sword could easily wipe out multiple orcs with a single blow. The Dark Fairy with her dark magic swiftly flew past the orcs. Whoever came in touch with her strings of dark magic would burst as if they had a bomb planted inside them. The blood of orcs were pouring like rain, which left witnesses in shock and disbelief. They were puzzled as to how a single necromancer managed to turn the tides of the battlefield just by himself. Even though the Empire forbids black magic, the use of it has significantly increased their chances of survival in this battle. A sense of gratitude and hope emerged within them as they realized that the necromancer, along with his companions, might actually defeat the orcs and save them from impending doom. Meanwhile, the Orc Lord couldn't help but commend our MC, as he never thought that mere corpses could force him to a halt. However, he warned him not to think that he could defeat him with just these tricks. In response, our MC confidently complimented the Orc Lord, asserting his superiority over him by claiming him to be a usable body with the qualifications to be his new companion. Our MC infused mana into his sword, turning it into a whip-like sword, dashing towards the Orc Lord, who also leaped towards our MC using his aura skill. He then sliced our MC's hand and leg up. However, he soon realized that it was merely just a decoy, and in that split second the Orc instinctively detected our MC and attacked from his rear side. Just when he thought he landed a blow on our MC, he then summoned a huge bone wall that emerged from the ground, blocking the massive blow. Our MC then realized that the Orc's abilities exceeded his initial expectations, so he must become even stronger to protect those precious to him in this world and for the sake of his survival, as Andreas Cromwell in this world. Our MC created an armor made of bones that began to cover his whole body. The armor has the ability to enhance his defense and abilities. Seeing this transformed state of our MC and having excellent swordsmanship regardless of being a necromancer with exceptional necromancy skills and worthy companions, the Orc Lord recognized our MC as a great warrior who wishes to change the world. Smiling at our MC, the Orc Lord was ready to show his true power with a final battle between them. As the two powerful individuals fought head-on, they made the ground beneath them tremble as their weapons clashed, creating shock waves that sent vibrations through the surroundings, and everyone who witnessed this feat were left in shock as they saw firsthand the destructive power of the battle unfolding before them. However, even the greatest battles must come to an end with a few more exchanges of slashes as both our MC and the Orc Lord prepared their most devastating attacks, aiming to bring the fight to a definitive conclusion, and the outcome of this epic clash would determine the fate of both combatants and shape the course of the battle. Now let's rewind to the beginning. In reality, our MC is Makoto Kaneshiro, who used to be a member of the Special Forces trained to kill. After retiring, he couldn't adapt to the life of a normal member of society. And for him, the only thing that supported him in his heart was a game called The Great Sin. So he just forgot about everything and immersed himself in the game, seeking comfort in it. After 12 weeks of playing non-stop, he finally managed to clear it. However, his triumph did not last long as he received a phone call from someone with detailed knowledge of his personal information and gaming habits. Panicking, he tried to turn off his computer instantly. A notification popped onto his screen saying playable character, along with his name Makoto Kaneshiro and the name of the character inside the game, Andreas Cromwell. Without realizing it, he turned into a game character at a point half a year before the main story began. This is Rodlin Academy, the Empire's most prestigious and nurturing academy where promising individuals come to learn. Little did people know, the academy also served as a gathering place for those hiding their true identities. Deep within its walls, hidden behind a portal, lies a secret chamber where our MC Andreas Cromwell works under Professor Sharon. The professor was displeased by the sheer incompetence of our MC, who, when asked by the professor, forgot the location of the body they worked the previous week. Being researchers of the forbidden black magic, necromancers, finding that body was of utmost importance, as if it were to be seen by someone, they would be executed on the spot. That is why the experiments were conducted in secret. Under the professor's instruction, our MC started to pour blood to create a black magic circle with forbidden inscriptions to perform a resurrection ritual on a dead body. Then Sharon told our MC to step back as he was about to begin the ritual. A sudden blue light started to envelop them. Our MC was left in a state of awe. Suddenly, the body started to float, all covered in a blue aura. A screeching sound began to come out of the corpse. Sharon then stated that the ritual was another failure. He then told our MC to clean everything up and head back to him. While Sharon was telling our MC this, our MC in the back of his mind was just disappointed that he couldn't learn anything today, too. While wiping the floors stained with blood, our MC was thinking, even after all the work he has been doing, how dangerous this is. It seemed that he was not getting much out of this. But even after all this, our MC couldn't quit working with the professor, as this chamber is the only place he could read books concerning black magic. After finishing all the cleaning, Andreas went back to Sharon and apologized for taking such a long time. Sharon was annoyed and stated if it took Andreas half a day to just clean up, then when will he be able to do the full job by himself? Meanwhile, Andreas, in his mind, was frustrated as he had to learn everything himself and blamed Sharon for not teaching him anything. Sharon continued demeaning Andreas, telling him that he entrusted a simple job to him, yet he was nervous. He further warned him about not tolerating another failure anymore. Then Andreas told Sharon that he will do his best. Sharon then proceeds to show doubts about counting on Andreas, but decides to give Andreas another chance. So he told Andreas to go to the Ben Halez National Graveyard and bring him another body. Sharon reminded Andreas that he was the one who took him in despite Andreas being an orphan. Sharon then claimed that Andreas had to constantly prove his worth. If he couldn't, then Andreas already knew the consequences. Andreas knew what he meant. If he were to fail again, he would just become another body for Sharon to experiment on. Finally, Sharon told Andreas to leave. Our MC Andreas in his mind was very angry at the professor for the terrible treatment he receives and that he did not even get the travel expenses. As our MC opened the door and was about to leave, he caught the attention of many students passing by. Andreas was not pleased with all of the glances he was getting. The students looked at him in amusement, wondering how Andreas was still in the academy. Our MC, frustrated with all this, rushed past them. He was annoyed with all the problems he had to face as Andreas Cromwell, a third-year student of the academy, who was considered untalented. In the story of the Great Sin, Andreas Cromwell is an orphan boy from a fallen noble family who curries favor with the strong and slams the weak. He is a third-rated villain, the type of character that nobody wants to play, being the one always followed by the shadow of death, which means all playable characters go through the same events and later discover Karen's true identity and then kill him together with Andreas. So if Andreas doesn't find a way to get away from Sharon before the main story begins, then he won't be able to escape being involved with the main characters. Andreas was puzzled if he could even clear this. But having no choice, he decided to get stronger before the main story began. The only thing that Andreas can count on are the 2 special traits he got for playing 12 weeks. One of the 2 traits was given to him at random, and he got dual core, which makes Andreas able to use both magic and swordsmanship. But our MC knew very well that only focusing on this trait was not enough for his survival. For the next trait, our MC was given a chance to choose, which made him wonder if choosing a trait that synergizes more with his necromancy would be the best course of action. Our MC then opened the system notification window. Andreas was startled when the system window showed multiple lists of characteristics to choose from. Our MC recognized some characteristics like Oriental Dao and Weapons Path, but soon decided that these would not suit his necromancy. So he decided to look for the ones he hadn't seen before. He was certain that he could find a solution here. Suddenly a trait caught his eye, which was evolution. Our MC was intrigued, as evolution is the phenomenon that adapts a living creature for it to reach higher places. It was a trait he hadn't seen before in the game. What he really needed was something that allowed him to outgrow those castle walls, an evolutionary development. So he decided there was no need to think further and selected the evolutionary trait. Evolutionary trait selected. Suddenly, he got a glimpse of the future this evolution trait will bring him. He envisioned a version of himself wielding this power to the fullest of its capabilities. Along with the undead companions he will gather, each with their own traits, abilities, and unwavering loyalty towards him, he is sure he will reach heights he never thought would have been possible before. With these newfound powers, our MC was confident that he would survive and clear the game as Andrea is inside the world of great sins. This is Maple Leaf Dormitory of the Rodlin Academy, where Andreas was living. This is a free facility available for the students to stay in. As our MC woke up, he was thinking, even though he knew Andreas was a very minor villain in the game. But seeing it firsthand, he was surprised to see that he really was so powerless and could barely use a single elemental magic. So his only immediate asset would be necromancy, which is why he chose the evolution trait. He decided to stop by the underground research room before he went to the graveyard. Since he can't be wasting his time, he needs to get stronger as fast as possible. This is not only for the events that happen in the game, but there are countless characters that can kill him besides Sharon. As Andreas was scanning through the bookshelf, he found many black magic books with horrible titles which if found could get him instantly killed. But he was more afraid of something else that could kill him in that very room. Our MC thought that if he was not mistaken, she is clearly a vampire. Vampires in this game are unfazed by direct sunlight and are beings that are capable of wielding powerful magic. She's not the kind of being that Sharon can get his hands on easily. Furthermore, she is probably the equivalent of a mid-game boss. Andreas was minding his own business. To his surprise, he was called by the vampire to help her escape from there. She further promises that if he lets her out, she will kill Sharon. She knows he's afraid that Sharon will kill him someday. Andreas remains untroubled because, as expected of a vampire, she could see through his caution with Sharon. He realizes he hasn't been acting like Andreas for a while now, which could be the reason she approached him. He further says that if he was to release her, there's no guarantee that she would let him go safely. Cunningly, she swears she won't kill him and that she's telling the truth. Andreas isn't naive to be convinced that a higher being like her would keep promise with a mere human. So he doesn't believe her words and calmly says that he will think about it, as he would get in trouble if he were to betray his teacher right away. The vampire isn't pleased with his response and begs him to release her immediately, as she had very little time. Andreas boards the train to head to the graveyard. He acknowledges the vampire's offer to be tempting and to be a godsend gift, but for now he concludes to research more about vampires before taking a decision he might regret. Perhaps there is a book somewhere about handling vampires which would help him tame her.
The next stop is at the National Graveyard.
Andreas gets off the train and makes his way towards the graveyard, carrying a huge suitcase that he uses to transport the corpse. As he struggles to carry the suitcase, he soon realizes that this is a body of a mage and money may be one of the valuable assets for him, but for now he has to put up with using some physical strength. Giving it his all, he reaches the National Graveyard, the place where all the black mages come to gather their corpses, which are used to perform forbidden rituals. A code was required to enter the graveyard and introduce oneself as scavengers. He had a faint recollection about it. He approached the guard and said he came from Jenny's house and he was her third grandson. The guard asked him if he had brought flowers, and Andreas responded saying he had brought 13 azure sky irises. Convinced, the guard opened the door for Andreas and let him in. However, Andreas was relieved that the code matched, as he only had a faint recollection. After entering the graveyard, as per the guard's direction, Andreas met the gravedigger, who was a middle-aged person and had hurt his hip after he finished digging the grave. He was pleased to see Andreas arriving just in time. As promised, the gravedigger showed Andreas the knight's corpse. Thanking the gravedigger, Andreas sets out to fit the corpse into his suitcase, but struggles due to his weak physique. Somehow he managed to squeeze it in and was about to leave before it got too late. Just as he was about to leave, a gravestone with a familiar name carved in it caught his attention. It felt as if he had seen that name somewhere before. Much to his astonishment, it was the aura master Nickel Lifehill, a legendary swordsman who underwent decades of harsh training. He lived completely isolated from the outer world, devoting his life towards the path of the sword, training his way to achieve glory of an aura master. But even though he dedicated his whole life to swordsmanship, becoming an aura master, he died of old age. It was one of the game's Easter eggs. Andreas couldn't help but wonder why they added it in the first place. In this world of the great sin, nobody seemed to know that Nickel had become an aura master at the end. Andreas imagined how tremendously strong his undead soldiers would be if he could create a death knight with Nickel's corpse to lead them. Nevertheless, he wasn't confident enough that he could perform the necromancy, as even Sharon couldn't create a high-ranking one. But once he evolves with the help of the evolution trait that he had selected, resurrecting Nickel as his death knight will be possible, which will take him one step closer to clear the game as Andreas Cromwell. So he definitely needs to find a body with good latent abilities. Making up his mind to take Nickel's corpse as well with him, he called the gravedigger with utmost respect, saying Sir Paimon. Before he could even ask, Paimon asked him if he wanted another body and rejected him, saying either way it's a no, and that he had to get Karen's permission first as it would jeopardize his position. Andreas knew it wouldn't be that easy, so without hesitating he offered his ring as a trade for one body. Paimon was shocked after seeing the ring offered by Andreas, as it was an engraved ring with a count's crest, as he could make a fortune by selling it. He couldn't believe Andreas was actually offering it to him. Andreas further stated that he had nothing but this old ring of his that he has to offer, and as a mage, results matter the most to him. So he would gladly offer it. Paimon, as cunning as he was, made it seem like he was hesitating to take the offer, knowing even though it's the ring of a fallen noble family, it still is irresistible to him and could fetch him a fortune. Andreas is desperate, as he was assured he would definitely hide this deal from his teacher, and further insisted on taking his ring. Paimon, as hesitant as he made himself look later on, agreed with taking Andreas's ring in exchange of Nickel's corpse. Andreas was pleased as Paimon accepted the offer and insisted on offering his aid to dig Nickel's corpse. They finally finished up digging Nickel's corpse. Meanwhile, Andreas was thinking how the future he saw after selecting the evolution trait has finally begun. Then, Andreas decided once he got back he would start his necromancy training immediately, as he needs to get stronger as soon as possible. After Andreas returned with the knight's corpse, Sharon and Andreas started to work on the knight's body. Then Sharon said that the body seemed like it could be used and ordered Andreas to take care of the reagents while he was gone. He further warned Andreas would be responsible if something went wrong in his absence. While cleaning the body, he was annoyed that Sharon was ordering him around as soon as he returned, but soon realized that he did chores better when he was annoyed. Perhaps this was because his body instinctively remembered. Wiping the sweat from his forehead, Andreas thought to himself that to make time for his studies, he had to quickly finish the tasks given to him. While he was cleaning the blood off the floor, he started to wonder if he could summon Nickel's body at his current level, but considering his skill level, he realized resurrecting a skeleton is the most he can work with for now. He started to think that there was a possibility to evolve things with the help of the evolution trait, but he was not confident as he had not tried it out yet. On top of that, he could not even afford another corpse to practice on. Out of nowhere, the sound of chains clanking disrupted his thoughts. Vampire then called Andreas and asked how long he was planning to make her wait. Andreas looked annoyed as he turned towards the vampire and asked her if she wasn't sleeping. The vampire responded by saying she already told Andreas that she wouldn't kill him and demanded to let her out. She then tries to provoke him by asking if he wants to live the rest of his life as Karen's assistant. He started to walk towards the vampire as he was waiting for her to approach him. The vampire, looking at Andreas, thought she was finally going to be free, which made her smile, asking him if he finally made up his mind. Meanwhile, Andreas was wondering how Sharon even managed to tie her down. But as he read a book about vampires, he had figured out the answer. The vampire was puzzled as Andreas was standing in silence staring at her. She then asked if he was still having doubts. As she turned around and headed towards the end of her cell, she urged him to hurry up and make up his mind, warning that she might still kill him even if he were to release her. As she was walking away from Andreas, he told her he would let her out. This surprised her. She turned around and was left in a state of awe. He further stated that he couldn't stand licking Karen's ass anymore. She was overjoyed by the statement. Moving her hands towards Andreas, she told him to remove her restraints. However, Andreas had one condition. He told her to swear on her family's name that she won't kill him. She was bewildered by his condition. As Andreas read in the book, when a vampire swears on their family's name, they are prohibited from breaking the promise they made. Andreas, judging by her reaction, concluded that the content of the book was true. The vampires, having no choice, decided to accept his condition and swore on Lucifer's name. Andreas was shocked at how easily his plan had worked. Suddenly, a system notification popped up before him. The window stated that he had fulfilled the conditions and that an evolvable specimen had been detected. And the probability of Angela Lucifer's evolution was 55%. Andreas was surprised by this sudden notification, making him wonder what this all meant and how evolution probability was possible just because she swore. As Andreas was surfing through the notification, this made her puzzled because she couldn't see the notification window, but only him waving his hands in the air. The window further stated that this evolution was a unique one, and the targets who accumulate enough experience can evolve from a lower grade to a higher grade. It can also be used on all targets that are not hostile. It was written that a genetic divergence could occur and asked him if he would proceed with the evolution. Andreas, analyzing all of the contents from the window, understood he could use the evolution trait on other entities apart from his summons. He felt like this could really be a good opportunity to test it out before using it on Nickel, as even if something were to happen, it would not be his fault. Amused at Andreas's behavior, she asked him what he was doing. She was worried and asked if he deceived her. Andreas, paying no attention to her, proceeded with the evolution. Right after he clicked on the button, a sudden surge of mana enveloped her. This caused her immense pain like she had never felt before, which left her screaming in agony. She fell on her knee. Andreas, watching this happen right before his eyes, left him in a state of confusion. Her veins were popping. Her eyes had turned bloody red. Gasping for breath and drooling all over the floor, she accused Andreas of this state of her. Another surge of mana enveloped her, causing her more pain, which made her fall back and faint. He could not comprehend what the hell was happening to her. In a state of panic, he called her and yelled at her to pull herself together. Even after all this happened, Andreas was not sure if the evolution process was a success or not. After all of the things unfolded, he left the room. As he went down the stairs, he thought to himself that he learned one more thing about this trait. If he could evolve entities that are not his direct summons, then he could certainly evolve his own. He finally decided to summon Nickel. He placed Nickel's corpse on the summoning magic circle filled with forbidden inscriptions and started to spray ingredients from the bowl. After he finished all the preparation, now it was time for him to begin the summoning ritual. He started condensing mana in the palm of his hand, which emitted a blue light that enveloped him. Suddenly, a system window notification popped up stating that basic necromancy skeleton summoning had been activated. One corpse had been detected, and the target that was capable of exercising necromancy had been detected. Additional effects had also been applied. Even though the sudden notification surprised him at first, he soon realized the odds were in his favor, which boosted his confidence. As Andreas pointed his mana-infused hand towards Nickel's corpse, a black aura surrounded his corpse, making it slightly float in the air. The summoning ritual was so intense that Andreas had to use his other hand just to support his mana-infused hand. He was shocked at the amount of mana needed just to summon a single skeleton. The dark aura made Nickel's skin and flesh peel off, leaving only his skeleton behind. A blue aura started to emit from Nickel's skeleton. As he woke up from the dead, he glanced at Andreas, who had fallen on the ground in a state of amazement. Right after that, a system notification popped up indicating the basic necromancy skeleton summoning was successful. It also stated that one skeleton of the legendary class had been summoned. His skeleton summoning level had also increased from level 1 to 3. Another notification popped up stating the corpse's level was high and that bonus statuses had been applied. The corpse's level was determined extremely high, raising its tier and turning it into a skeleton soldier. Since the corpse's level was transcendent, it will regain a little of its sense of self from the past. He was both surprised and glad that the summoning had been a huge success. On top of that, it even became a grade higher than a regular skeleton. It was a legendary skeleton soldier of tier 2 level with traits, the sense of self and mastery of the sword. And its trait mastery is the state of being at the pinnacle or ultimate stage of proficiency such that there is nothing else beyond. A skeleton possessing a trait that can only be attained through effort and growth was something Andreas didn't expect. Without any doubt, Andreas acknowledged Nickel as a swordmaster when he was still alive. Nickel, using sign language, tried to tell something to Andreas. Andreas, trying to understand what Nickel was saying, asked him if he meant that he would be under Nickel's care. Nickel confirmed what Andreas said by gesturing with an OK sign with his hand. Seeing Nickel's gesture and knowing his abilities, Andreas felt a sense of satisfaction and one step closer to achieving his goal. He then further assured Nickel that he would be under his care too. After finishing the summoning ritual, Andreas came back to his dormitory. As he was resting in his room, he wondered about the timeline of the game. Looking at the calendar, he realized there was still about a year left until Sharoon's death. He opened his system window to look at his stats, where he found out that even if he left his summoning skill alone, its proficiency was still rising. However, for him to survive in this game, he knew that he needed to do a lot of things. For now, he decides to let Nickel out of the room for now. As he opened the system to summon Nickel, it showed that there was currently 1 summon out of 5 in his storage. He then proceeds to summon Nickel. A summoning portal appears in front of Andreas, from which Nickel walks out. Since it would be troublesome if someone saw him, Andreas decides to dress him up. As Andreas covered Nickel from head to toe, he was confident that no matter how anyone looked at it, they'd be sure he was a human. Out of nowhere, Nickel started to swing his hand like he was swinging a sword. This made Andreas convinced that the Easter egg description was true. Looking at Nickel, Andreas praised his determination as a man who died while training is still training with the same will even though he is dead. Andreas finally found a way to cultivate this trait of his, and for that, Nickel would play a vital role. Without hesitating, Andreas called Nickel, which made Nickel stop his training and turn towards Andreas. Andreas then proceeded and asked to teach him swordsmanship. This left Nickel in a puzzled state as he was being asked to teach his master, but who better to teach Andreas swordsmanship than an aura master himself? This is Cromwell Information Scroll, which shows the overview of the Great Sin world. In the world of Great Sin, both talents and its rank are important factors. This indicates that the shorter the name, the stronger the talent is. For example, movement is the highest level of physical ability there is, as opposed to motion prowess, which would be a grade below. The different grade categories in the world of the Great Sin are genius, exceptional, extraordinary, ordinary, and poor.